Right. All right. Huge news from down under. Rafa Nadal has crashed out of the Australian Open, leaving the top quarter pretty wide open, which we'll take a look at. But obviously, hard to watch again as Nadal, suffering from injury, goes out. Was able to finish the match, still was dangerous, but clearly not at his best from like the second set, mid second set on, after Mcdonald played amazing to start the match and really take it to him. So we're going to discuss, was this Rafa Nadal's last match at the Australian Open? I hate being the retirement guy, and I never really do it. I never talk about retirement, but it's getting really hard to watch him go through all these injuries, and I'm sure it's even harder for him to play through them. So we'll talk about that. Felix Auger-Aliassime, Canadian superstar, survives a huge scare, 5-set come from behind victory. We're going to look at all the results from yesterday, take a look at the matchups happening today, as we're halfway through the second round here at the Australian Open. So welcome to Slice. Thanks for being here, and let's get stuck into this one. So yeah, the big news of the day, Rafa Nadal out of the Australian Open. I did leave him off my contenders list, and that's become true. For unfortunately, or I just felt like this was not his year. I had this general feeling that I don't know what. Wasn't his year, the draw, and Mcdonald was not the guy that I expected to take him out, but he is out. Anyways, the Slice is presented by the Monday Bagel newsletter. So do us a favor and click the link below and subscribe to our weekly newsletter. That's not happening during the majors, but will happen right after, giving you weekly updates on rankings, who's playing where, what's happening, kind of condensing all the news so you can save time. Link is below for that. And Go Sport is our official bag of the Australian Open, also linked below. So yeah, big news from yesterday. First real big upset of the tournament, I would say, for a real big top seed to go out. Obviously, the number one seed on the men's tour or on the men's side is out. So what happened? Mcdonald, if you didn't see, was beating him straight up. I turned it on, and he was already down a break in the first set, and Mcdonald played it out, won that set. And then he was up. I think Mcdonald was up a break early in the second set, but then Rafa Nadal came back. It was 3-2. And then shortly after that, I think the hip thing started, closer to the end of the third set or the second set. So yeah, first of all, straight up, Mcdonald was beating him, and he was playing great. Mcdonald hits that flat ball, super aggressive, hits a flat ball on both sides, and these Dunlop balls that all the players have been complaining about seem to help him because he doesn't need them to kick up high. He doesn't need spin to hurt players. He actually hurts them without spin. So seemed to help him, probably hurts Nadal, as Nadal was one of the players complaining about the balls earlier in the tournament. But yeah, to Nadal's injury, he said he was feeling his hip for a couple days, and he's had issues with it in the past, but then kind of flared up. We all saw it in the one moment where he kind of took a step, and maybe it got worse there, and then he wasn't able to calm that down during the match. And yeah, a lot of people, people get so annoyed seeing every time. It seems like so many times when Nadal loses, it's due to an injury in some sense. Obviously not always. And Mcdonald might have won, as Nadal said. Either way, if he wasn't hurt, didn't get that injury midway through the match. But my question is now, it's just, we've seen this, last at the Wimbledon last year. And he just hasn't been playing well since then. He won the first two majors of last year, which is crazy. But it's just, how much longer is he wanting to put up with this? That's going to be up to him, obviously. I think he's the type of guy in these post-match press conferences right after, obviously, he's depressed. He's not going to really give much. But I think when he doesn't feel the desire to keep going through and battling, because he always talks about it, pain is part of the process in tennis. Like pain, especially for him, a guy who's constantly injured, is just part of life as a tennis player. It's part of the battle that I feel like he has within himself, and he wants to go through to win these titles like he has. But you got to feel like that might change the more and more this continues to happen. So yeah, I thought that wave at the end, to the crowd, the Australian Open crowd, it felt significant to me. It was kind of long, drawn out, seemed like a thank you, Australia. And to me, I honestly don't know if we'll see Rafa Nadal in Australia again. That might have been his last match, and I wouldn't blame him, would you? He's 36, 37. He's won 22 slams, most ever. He's kind of done it all, and he won Australia last year, which I don't know. He might have, we all might have thought he never would have won Australia again. So he's got nothing. He doesn't owe Australian fans or us anything at all. And it's just like I said, it's hard to see that great champion play through those types of injuries. We'd rather just see him obviously play injury free and bring his best tennis, which he wasn't able to do yesterday. But huge win for Mcdonald. So Rafa out, top half of the draw, and now has all these young guys feel like they got more opportunity. I'm sure we're going to have one of the younger guys probably in the final to probably play Djokovic. So that makes it interesting to me. That might have been, like I said, that probably was going to be the case anyways. But we'll see. Felix Auger-Aliassime survives. He did the classic, lost a couple early sets. And what I'm calling is frozen Felix syndrome. When he loses in a similar way most of the time. We saw it against Casper Ruud in Montreal. I saw it against Jack Draper at the US Open, where he comes out and he's not feeling his game for whatever reason. And then he kind of gets frozen to me. He seems tense then. He seems on the back foot. And then he's either not doing enough and he's playing a hot opponent who's just taking it to him like Jack Draper was. And like, why can I not remember the guy's name now? Molcan was yesterday. So that's not helping. But then he's also just not playing his game. Way more unforced errors than winners. And he kind of gets frozen in place. Thankfully, it was a 5-set match. And midway through that third set, where it's still pretty close, Molcan started to think about it and get a little tight. And the confidence swap started to happen where Molcan lost confidence and Felix started to gain it. And Felix started, he was complaining about the balls because these balls are flat, right? So he's not getting any action of it. Felix plays with a heavy ball. And if the balls aren't lively, he can't play in a heavy way, really. So I think he started to try to make points shorter a little bit, but he also just tried to not go for as much. So he was making points shorter by doing drop shots or coming into the net, but he was not trying to go for, baseline winners that, he was not able to feel like he had total control of the ball. So he made those changes just in the nick of time. And then Molcan started to play less good. And that really gave Felix confidence. In the last 2 sets, Felix had 28 winners to only 9 unforced errors. And in the first 3 sets, it was like a lot, like double-digit unforced errors each set. So really tightened it up and found a way to win. And to me, you can look at that either way. You can be like, wow, he's struggling against Molcan in the second round. Not good that he has to spend that much energy. Or you can look at it like he problem solved, which he hasn't in the past sometimes, got through that match, won without his best tennis. That's the type of thing we always congratulate and marvel at Djokovic and Nadal for doing, right? It's winning ugly, winning without their best, their B level, beating guys A level. And I think Felix was able to do that. So that's an encouraging sign for me if you're a Canadian tennis fan or just a Felix fan in general, which everyone should be, because, he's like the nicest guy ever, huge stud. So interesting stuff there. Those are my 2 big matches of yesterday. Let's now throw up the other results and go through them quickly. So on Rod Laver Arena, Swiatek kind of cruised on Osorio. I was thinking of that match. Thought it might be a little closer. Pegula won. Tsitsipas crushed. He looked amazing. Coco Gauff was too much for Emma Raducanu. Didn't see any of that match. Sakkari kind of slipped through against Schneider. That was a really weird match. Sakkari seems very mentally fragile to me out there. She seems like she's convincing herself. She in the post-match presser, she said, I deserve to be here. And like no one yeah, we know you do. Sounded like she was trying to convince herself that she's still, a top 10 player, that she's still a good player, because her confidence is just really shaky right now. But she gets through that into the third round, so that's good for her. Madison Keys moves on. Daniil Medvedev moves on through John Millman expectedly. Danimal Collins moves on. So still, most of the top seeds winning most matches. Sinner wins in 3. TFO wins in 3. Khachanov wins in 4. Rybakina, I'd keep an eye out for her, 6-2, 6-1. And I guess Petra Kvitova goes out. And then the big Canadian result, Bianca Andreescu goes down in 3 sets to Buxa, qualifier from Spain. So I watched the highlights of this match. I actually didn't even watch the match because it was late and I had to get to bed, and I thought she'd be fine. So she won the first set, got the early break. She was actually up a set and a break. And then she won the first game of the second set and then went down 5-1, but then brought it back to a tiebreaker. Just kind of a classic Bianca Andreescu match there in that way. And then it was close. And Buxa is she's pretty tall. She's got easy power. And yeah, I guess, with the rain delays, I think Bianca Andreescu's match was delayed by like 5 hours or something like that. Had to have thrown her off. Wasn't feeling her game probably to the best of her ability. And in these 3-set matches, you can just lose. You can just lose like that. So tough one for Bianca Andreescu. I was really hoping to see her play Swiatek and see what her level could be like against her, because I think she could have caused her problems for sure. But unfortunately, we won't be able to see that. Australian hero now, Thanasi Kokkinakis, 6-1, 6-2, 6-2 over Fognini. Pinches off that one very well. Krejcikova through 6-4, 6-1. Shapovalov threw in 3 sets. That was a good win for him. He told the crowd to shut up. Back on that train. He does his thing. You know how Shapo does it. So a lot of this top seeds still moving through. As I said, Jill Teichmann not out 6-2, 6-2. Isner out. Hubert Hurkacz through in 5 sets to over Sonego. That looked like a battle or a grind. Hugo Humbert over Gasquet. Bautista Agut still in. Kasatkina. Oh, didn't see that one. That one snuck under our radar there. No one saw that. To fellow either Belarusian or Russian, I can't tell without the flag, but 6-1, 6-1 in less than an hour. Damn, that is a tough result for Kasatkina. Top 10 player on the women's side out. Okay. And Ostapenko wins. And anyways, so what do we got on the schedule, on the menu for today, day 4 at the Australian Open? Let's look at Rod Laver Arena. And then I'll talk about the draws, especially on the top half where Nadal is out now, because that's a big deal for that quarter. Sabalenka versus Rogers first up on Rod Laver, and then we got Brooksby versus Rude. That's going to be interesting. Then we got Canadian Leylah Fernandez versus Caroline Garcia. That's going to be a tough match for Leylah, but she can do it. Then we got Djokovic playing his next sacrificial lamb in Koukenard. I want to give the guy respect, obviously, but he's outside of the top 180. I think he's like 190 in the world. So if Djokovic struggles, that will be a mega, mega, mega shock. Jabeur playing Vondrousova in action. And, I think this bottom half of the draw has less stars involved. So these off days have a little bit less interesting matchups, in my opinion. But Thanasi Kokkinakis versus Murray, that's going to be fun. But I might catch at the end of that when I wake up, to be honest. But that is going to be a late night one. So anyways, let's now turn our attention to the draws, particularly the top quarter, which you can see now is kind of wide open. So Nadal goes out. So we got Mackenzie Mcdonald versus Nishioka in the 3rd round. Khachanov versus TFO. So great opportunity for TFO, in my opinion, to make the quarters. It's got to be Khachanov and then either McDonald or Nishioka, but I'm taking TFO over Khachanov for sure. And then also a good opportunity, obviously for Medvedev and then Shapovalov. But Medvedev was probably my favorite to come out of that quarter anyways, over Nadal. But that would have been super interesting if Nadal was healthy, because he does kind of have Medvedev in a little bit of a lock. But it's not a final, because he's beaten him, obviously, in a couple of finals in a row on hard court at the beginning of last year. But this is a year later, so lots has changed. So anyways, that quarter has opened up. So I'd say Medvedev, we got an interesting match. Hurkacz versus Shapovalov. Medvedev's got to beat Korda. So a lot of young talent. I think everyone there is under like 26, 25. So great little quarter there, and opportunity to make a quarterfinal for one of those guys, which Medvedev making a quarterfinal is obviously expected and hoped for, but his ranking's now down to 7. So interesting stuff. Anyways, might leave it there, but big news of the day, Rafa Nadal out. No longer at the Australian Open. What do you guys think? Let me know. Is he done? Is he going to keep pushing through injury again? How many times have we seen this where he's either coming out of the Australian Open or out of the Sunshine Double, limping, and then goes into the clay swing and figures out his body. The clay's easier on his body, and then he ends up winning the French Open. Is that going to happen again this year, or is it different? I predicted that many times in the past to no avail. So we'll see. But tough to see Nadal go down like that. But that's the sport we play. And that's what happens when you're 36 years old. No one can beat Father Time. He always wins. So yeah, another one bites the dust, it seems, at this tournament. So anyways, that's a day 3 roundup. Let's get stuck into day 4. Click the links below. Follow me on Twitter right here at the Slice Steven. I'm putting out lots of my thoughts constantly on there. And we will see you next time here on the Slice.